Hello, my name is Brian Higby. I'm a project manager with Trapeze, and I implement around the world real-time passenger information systems and bus management systems for managing public transport. Some of my biggest systems would be London with the iBus system and the CFMS system in Singapore, delivering AVLC systems to manage the bus network and provide feeds into passenger information channels. So I'd like to introduce you to our LIO control center. It's a system for delivering control and information across a wide city or regional area. And I'd like to start by looking at the driver interaction with the control center. So this is a simulator running on this system, which I'm simulating a vehicle, and I'm pretending to drive along, and there's a problem at a bus stop that I notice. It's not critical, but I feel that I really ought to inform the service controller about it. So I press my speech request button, and coming up here is an event in my event console. So the service controller is informed that the driver wants to speak to him, and we've got information about which vehicle it is, what kind of event, where that vehicle is, where the vehicle's going to, and things. And I can click on this button. In a real system, clicking on that would establish a voice connection. I'd be able to look at attributes for the vehicle and talk to the driver and understand what his issue is. This is a simulation, so of course that isn't quite working. So that event, I've spoken to the driver, that event has happened, and I'm going to acknowledge the event and remove it from the event queue. Now we're just find another driver who's driving along, but he's got a slightly more serious problem. In fact, he needs some emergency assistance. Something's going on his bus which he'd like to trigger an emergency with. So in this case, on the simulator, I press the red button, but often it's a hidden covert emergency button that's able to be easily triggered. The same sort of thing happens. We get information about the vehicle. The event appears up in the top window here. It's actually popped up in an area at the top, which is for high priority events. And I can then go in and make the call, and that would set up, possibly depending upon the radio system, an emergency connection through to the vehicle. We support a range of different radio systems, from simple analog radio systems to modern digital radio systems, as well as, of course, voice over IP over the public mobile data network. So this event I've brought up, I can go in and look at the detail of where that vehicle is, what the vehicle is doing. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to zoom the map, but that's okay because I can just zoom back in. This is showing me where the vehicle is, and this panel on the right is giving me details about what the vehicle type is, the destination, the next stops, when it's supposed to start its next trip, and all sorts of useful information that might be necessary to understand what the impact on the network will be. And the vehicle will continue to be tracked as it moves along, and we can see that on the map and interact with the vehicles. Perhaps we need to establish a call to the police and get the police to go and see the driver, and we know where that vehicle is because we can track it on the map. So that's a very basic view of the interaction with a driver. What I'd like to do now is show you sending a message to the driver. So I can select any vehicle, chosen the same one that's being simulated over here, and I can then go in and send either a predefined message or type in a message to the driver, and that will be sent over the radio system to the driver and displayed on his console. And as I say, this is a simulation, so it's just a basic tool. So on the real driver console, depending upon his system, it would come up on that display, and he'd then be able to read the message when it's safe and convenient for him to do so. So that's the sort of driver interaction. I can also choose a vehicle to send a message from the control center. It doesn't have to be in response to an action. I can choose these vehicles here and then right click on them and send them a message, or I can right click on the route and choose send a message and send a message to the route to tell them, the drivers, that there's such and such a condition going on. So that's a very basic driver interaction. So what we have here is the route diagram. And what this is showing us is the status of the vehicles operating on this route and this route. And you can have many different routes shown within the system. And they're color coded based upon the performance of the bus against either the schedule or the timetable. If I hover over a bus, it brings up this hovering tooltip, which gives me lots of information about the bus. And I can see from the colors that generally the network is running smoothly. It's actually a headway route. So we're less interested in the timetable deviation. We're more interested in the regularity between the buses and maintaining that sweet spot window that keeps the buses green. If the gap gets a little bit too big, then it can change color. So in this instance, it's changed to blue. And if the gap gets a little bit too close, as in this instance, then it's changing to red. And this same display can be reproduced onto the driver. So when he arrives at a stop, it will tell him whether he's on time as far as the interval to the vehicle in front is. As when he's driving along, if it's a scheduled route, then it will display the timetable deviation. And when he arrives at a stop, it will display the timetable deviation. I just happen to be simulating here 2 headway routes. I can go in and look at the details of the vehicle by double clicking on it, and it will bring it up on a map. So this is my selected vehicle. The black line is where it has driven, and the purple line is where it's going. And again, I've got this list on the side. Within the route, you can choose a group of vehicles, as I showed, or you can choose the whole route, and then you can do various actions with them. So if you've got a voice system, you might want to have a conversation or make an announcement. And if we imagine that there's a little bit of disruption in the city centre, you might want to make an announcement to the drivers, you might want to make an announcement to the passengers, or indeed if your stops have also got audio, you might want to make an announcement to the stops as well. And you can either play a predefined announcement or you can make a live announcement as a service controller out to the network. You can even do that by holding down the shift key to a group of routes, or you can press the whole network button and then make an announcement to the whole network. When we interact with the vehicles, what we're doing is we're telling the driver to perhaps hold at a particular stop for a little longer, or to take a diversion and things. And what we really need to do as well is we need to feed that information through to the passengers so they know what is happening. So just imagine that there is some problems down the route beyond this stop here, McDonald in Liverpool Street. And I'm going to set up a diversion. So I can select this stop, I can right click and I can set up a diversion. It's a spontaneous diversion that I want to set up. And I'm going to, in the direction of the star, which is down here, I'm going to exit at the stop, McDonald Live. And I'm going to come back in on the other side at McDonald Live and head back up there, because I know that the road's been closed and I can't run the buses through, just as a simple example. And because I want to inform the passengers, I can also put some information, the route, what is it, 389, and not travel to the start, or whatever the message is. And that will then be displayed on any information signs, both physical and on websites or on SIRI feeds, which is a means of distributing data. so that the passengers as well as the driver is informed. And when I send that, I get an indication on my service control window telling me that there is a diversion set up. And because I set it up on the stop, any bus approaching that stop, I'm running a simulator, so it won't actually do anything. But if it was a real driver, he would get a message on his display saying, at McDonald Live, you need to follow a diversion. So I've set up this action, and it's now being applied to the system. The real-time passenger information will be taking that into account. This bus here will be saying on the signs that it's not going to carry on down these stops. If it had internal passenger information displays, they would be updated to say that the destination is here and things like that. So we've set up this action, and we can have quite a few actions within the system. And we have what's called the action console. So we can go in and see what actions are active within the system. We can edit them, or in this case, I'm just going to simply delete the action so that there's no longer that path dispatch on the system. I have this route diagram. I can also look at the vehicle table. So I can select my bus and I can go along and I can look at it within the vehicle table. And that's highlighting that bus within the vehicle table for whatever information I want. Just out of interest, we have a system that supports multiple languages. This particular simulator is set up to run in English and Arabic, but there are a range of different languages you can use. So this view is very, very powerful. I can go in and filter using these boxes at the top. So I could look for all buses that have got a 23 in them, or I can look for the service 389, and that will list out all the buses that are operating on the 389 or planned. But perhaps the driver's called in that there's a problem at Chiswick stop, and you can type that in and it will go and search within the text for buses that are somehow associated with the Chiswick stop, which would enable you to very quickly find a group of buses that may be of interest to you. Another thing that you can do, which may be useful, is you can put in a number up here, -60, and that's telling me how many blocks are due to finish within the next 60 minutes. If I put a +60, it would tell me blocks that are due to start within the next hour, of which there aren't any at this particular time. And we have lots of other information available within this vehicle table. And you can set up specific filters and save them as a bookmark for easy reference in the future. One of the other things that the system is doing is collecting lots and lots of data that can be analysed and reported upon. But in real time, imagine that you're in a customer response centre and a passenger's waiting at this stop and complaining that the service has not arrived. If I select up here, I can bring up the timetable for the whole route, and I can look at certain stops. And what I can do is turn on the actual time. So that service was there at 15:26, was there at 15:50. This purple color is the predicted arrival time in the future, but the pink color is the actual time that it arrived. And we can see that it served all of those stops, but with my simulator, I've jumped through some of the other stops. So you can look into the future, you can see when it's predicted to arrive, what time it's predicted to arrive at the last stop. And the system will make these predictions based upon the timetable deviation, but also if you've got a high frequency service with lots and lots of buses along it, we can enable what we call history-based prediction, where actually if the buses in front were taking longer to travel because there's some congestion, it will predict that congestion will continue for a while. And as the congestion starts to clear, it will model the clearing because it's using the history of what's happened to actually simulate or not simulate, but to feed into the prediction algorithm to generate the predicted arrival. And that's proven to be very successful in London and Singapore and elsewhere, where there are very many bus services at high frequency, lots of buses traveling along the same roads. And so there's a real statistical basis for making that comparison. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this has been a useful overview of the system, and I look forward to speaking to you further. Thank you.